Hello, before you are Group 1 members, we are going to talk about the Nubian civilization, whereby Sheila is going to talk about the introduction, Chacha is going to talk about the Kush, John and Joseph are going to talk about move to Meroe, Benvis and Sheila are going to talk about the control of Egypt. Finally, Ochanda Enoch is going to talk about the summary. So to start off, I'm going to start with the introduction. In the introduction part, I would like us to understand the geographical location of the Nubia and also the dates when it was traced. Now, Nubia is a region along the Nile River located in what is today the northern Sudan and southern Egypt. It was one of the earliest civilizations of ancient northeastern Africa, with a history that can be traced from at least 2000 BCE, and a home to one of the African empires. Before the 4th century, Nubia was known as Kush, and its capital city was Kema. There were a number of large Nubian kingdoms throughout the post-classical era, the last of which collapsed in 1504 CE, where Nubia became divided between Egypt and the Sena Sultanate, resulting into the Arabian of much of Nubian population. Nubia was again united within the Ottoman Egypt in the 19th century and within the Kingdom of Egypt from 1899 to 1956. So from the introduction, you are able to understand that Nubia was was located in the region that is today in the northern Sudan and southern Egypt. And we trace its civilization from 2000 BCE.
Hello, learned friends. We are going to look the Kush Kingdom. Under this, we are going to look three aspects. The first aspect is the political aspect, social and economic aspect. So let us start by looking the political aspect, where we are going to deep in the uh, Kush politically. So the Kush is a kingdom that was arose from the Kema, and this happened after it gained its independence from the Egypt. That is 1070 BC. So the Kush kingdom, it has main rulers, and it has a king called Alara. This king and the rulers control over the kingdom. So they performed several functions, including they were the rulers of the gods, and they control over the religion of the Kush kingdom. And economic part, you realize that this kingdom, they could produce the surplus from their land, especially that is the north and the southern parts of the kingdom. The north was seemingly very productive than the southern part, with the reason being that the north, and that's where the river Nile was located, so the land there was fertile. So the fertility of land enhances the large surplus production from the region. Another thing that we need to understand about this one is that the surplus that we are getting from the farm helped much the kingdom in tax paying, because it's from this surplus that they produced that helped in the payment of tax. Hence, this one resulted to the growth of the kingdom. Socially, you realize this kingdom had a museum. The museum played a very important role when it comes to this kingdom. So the Kush kingdom had its control, and this one helped it to grow very, very strong, unlike other kingdoms. Thank you.
Egypt. Under the control of Egypt, we are going to see what is happening there. So Alara, a king of Kush, was the first recorded prince of Nubia. Alara founded the Napatan dynasty, and then Alara was succeeded by her princess Kashta, who extended the Kushite control. Then Kashta was succeeded by her prince Pie. Then Pir was defeated by the Assyrian king Shalmaneser V, and then his successor Sargon II in the 720 BCE. The power of the 25th dynasty reached a climax under his son Taka. The Nile Valley Prince was large, and it had been since the New Kingdom. New prosperity revived Egyptian culture, that is, religion, the arts, and architecture was restored to their glorious Old, Middle, and New Kingdoms. The Nubian pharaohs built and restored temples and monuments. Then it was during the 25th dynasty that the Nile Valley saw the first widespread construction of pyramids in the modern Sudan since the Middle Kingdom. Writings were introduced to the Kush in the form of Egyptian-influenced Meroitic script between 700 to 600 BCE, although it appeared to have been wholly confined to the royal court and the major temples.
Between 674 and 671 BCE, the, As- the Assyrians began their invasion of Egypt under the king Asahad. Assyrians' armies had been the best in the world since the 14th century BCE, and they conquered this fashion territory with surprising speed. Tahaga was driven from power by Asahadon and fled to his Nubian homeland. However, the native Egyptian vassal rulers installed by Asahadon as puppets were unable to effectively retain full control for long without Assyrian aid. 2 years later, Tahaga returned from Nubia and seized control of section of South Egypt as far north as Memphis from Asahadon's local vassal. Asahadon's successor, Ashurbanipal, sent a Tan- Tatanu with a small but well-trained army that once more defeated Tahaga and ejected him from Egypt, and he was forced to flee back to his homeland in Nubia, where he died 2 years later.
Aspelta, a ruler of the kingdom of Kush from 600 BCE to 580 BCE, moved the capital to Meroe, considerably further south than Napata, possibly in 591 BCE. It is possible that Meroe had always been the Kushite capital. Historians believe that the Kushite rulers may have chosen Meroe as their home because, unlike Napata, the region around Meroe had enough woodlands to provide fuel for ironworking. In addition, Kush was no longer dependent to the Nile to trade with the outside world. They could instead transport goods from Meroe to the Red Sea coast, where Greek merchants were now traveling extensively.
In about 300 BC, the move to Meroe was made more complete when the monarchs began to be buried there instead of at Napata. One theory is that this represents the monarchs breaking away from the power of priests at Napata. Kushite civilization continued for several centuries. In the Napatan period, Egyptian hieroglyphs were used. At this time, writing seems to have been restricted to the court and temples. From the 2nd century BC, there was a separate Meroitic writing system. This was an alphabet script with 23 signs used in hieroglyphic form and in a cursive form. The latter was widely used. So far, some 1,278 texts using this version are known. The script was deciphered, but the language behind it is still a problem, with only a few words understood by the modern scholars. Kush began to fade as a power by the 1st or 2nd century, served by the war with the Roman province of Egypt and the decline of its traditional industries. Christianity began to gain over the old Pharaohic region, and by the mid-6th century CE, the kingdom of Kush was dissolved.
So thank you for watching. We are now going to make the summary of the Nubian civilization. So I'm going to give keynotes and also the brief summary of what has been talked about by my fellows. First, I would like to recognize that Nubian civilization started around 4 BC, but first the geographical location of the Nubia was at the northern part of Sudan and also southeastern part of Egypt. So before about 4 BC, it was called the Kush. So Kush didn't have the direction of movement in terms of civilization. They were still depending on other civilization in order to develop. As a result, the Egyptians took the advantage and also started conquering them. In the process, they were influenced by Egyptians, and later on, they lose a bit of their civilization. But the key thing that we get, which is very important from the Nubian civilization, is that they didn't lose their sense of dignity in terms of their culture. They were still obeying it. So after that, they started fighting again to restore their civilization from Egypt in order to restore their dignity. And they managed. Egyptians were not keen on this. Then you find that they started having their government with the first ruler called Alara, ruled for some period of time by restoring his main mission was to restore the dignity and also the initial lost culture of Nubians. After managing and proceeding to the next level, he left the throne to his daughter, who was the princess called Kashta. So Kashta ruled for a certain period of time. But the main mission of Kashta was to appreciate the culture they had from Egyptian by the time Egyptians civilized them. So she tried to restore the monuments, temples, and also other cultures which they really appreciate from Egyptians. After which the mission of Kashta completed, she left the throne again to her son. Her son was called Pie. So Pie started to restore and also restore and reaffirm the culture which were built by Alara and Kashta. But you find that something so unique is that Pie became aggressive and started expanding the territory of Nubians. Where did he start as expanding territory to? To the southern part of Nubia, that is northern part of Egypt, in what is called along the river Nile towards the southern east of the Egypt. So after which they came into contact with the Assyrians. So Assyrians started fighting them back. He also tried to defend by expanding territory a little bit, but the Assyrians were more stronger than him. So what resulted was that PA gave up to a certain ruler called Shalmaneser. So Shalmaneser started the journey of expansion, but you find that definitely Assyrian defeated them seriously, and then they retreated back to their original area of the Nubians area, that is Kema. So after which Shalmaneser gave again the throne to Taka. Taka tried as much as possible to restore the dignity, even if after being defeated by Assyrians. But Assyrians got more aggressive after realizing that the Nubians were weak in invasion, so they tried as much as possible to invade part of Nubians. So Nubians, after realizing the sense of defeat, serious defeat, humiliating defeat from the Assyrian, they started moving from Nubian, the original land of Kema, from Nubian, that is Kema capital city, and then it started moving towards Monroe. So Monroe was depicted conspicuously, mainly because it was a source of raw materials for trading. Just to leave alone the reasons why they were moving, because they were defeated by Assyrians. So during the movement, there was a certain king which was left handed over which was handed over the throne to, and this king was called as Aspelta. So Aspelta tried as much as possible to move very quickly from Kama to Monroy. So the movement of Monroy was so fast in order to actually usurp most of the raw materials which were necessary for trade at Moroy. So when they moved to Moroy, you find that they had a sense of peace. And Syrian took over the original land of Kema, that's Nubians. And after which, even after they had moved to Moroe, Assyrians still followed them up to the final latter, after which the culture of Nubians were ruined. Most of their dignity were ruined. Until today, Nubians lost their glory of kingdomship, and also they had the sense of being mixed up with other civilizations in which we are trying to get the sense that they are not being recognized as the largest and the largest territory or empires which we knew initially by the time they were originating from Cam. So that's the brief history, and that's the overview of what has been talked about in a nutshell. Thank you for watching once again, and also be blessed. Ask any questions that you wish can also benefit the whole class. Thank you so much.